Leadership Development Association. He served NMA in many, many roles over the years, certainly as the 2002 NMA Chairman of the Board. He has remained active on the board. His wife, Lisa, was our NMA Chairman last year, and Don is taking on a second stint as Chairman of our Professional Development Committee. So he is currently the principal in Don Hart Consulting, provides a lot of services from organizational issues, leadership training, and safety issue training. So Don has a variety of experience, but none greater maybe than NMA. So he's the perfect person to lead today's webinar. So I'm going to mute myself and make my face disappear, and we'll turn this over to Don. I will let you know we are recording the webinar today, and we will be opening up for questions as we go along. So we'll kind of play that one by ear. If we have to mute everybody, then unmute, we will do that. But Sue and I are here in Dayton. We're monitoring the chat room. So if there's something you want to send a note about, please feel free to do that. Don?
Yeah. Hey, Steve, before you leave me.
Yes, sir.
Do we have the capability to see raised hands?
We will. We do.
Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. It's my pleasure to, if you will, give you a tour through our PD resources. I'm always surprised at the number of members who haven't had the opportunity to experience some of the lesser known things that are equally good for us in providing leadership development. Reason I asked Steve about the hands, if you can find your hand to raise your hand on Zoom there. It's on the little bar, probably at the bottom of your page. How many of you have taken one of the NMA PD courses? Just raise your hand if you can find it. Okay.
Don, they'll have to click on the manage participants in order to be able to raise their hand. That's where the little hand is. Yeah, there goes hands.
We got people raising hands?
We do.
Because I can't see them. That's why
Yes.
We've got half a dozen.
Okay. That's actually pretty good. That's about half of the group. And of course, I hope after we're through here that we have more than that. I'd like to ask, for those of you who are still working, unlike Avis and I, we just volunteer our work. Does your employer, raise your hand if your employer provides your development training as opposed to something like, regulatory training and those kind of things. Does your employer provide leadership training other than NMA? Just raise your hands for me, and somebody tell me how many hands we get.
About 6 or 7.
Okay. If we have 23 stations on board, why, that's about 25% of you, and that's kind of, at least in the business I'm in, that I see the way things are going. The government regulations, of course, tend to overwhelm you. Many corporations, of course, have leadership training for people that they consider what high potentials, or some term like that. But oftentimes finding folks down, coming up through the bottom of the line and providing them with training is really not done as much as we might think. Now, if you believe you're responsible for your professional development training, raise your hand. Hands, Steve?
I have to scroll to see them all, so it takes me a minute.
Oh, well, that's okay.
There's about 9.
9, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, the thought I'd like to leave with you is that in the world the way it's moving today, with corporate takeovers, with some training budgets being tightened up an awful lot, that it actually falls on us to use our initiative to go out and get some additional leadership development type training, so that we can work in teams, and we can lead people that we don't necessarily have a lot of formal authority over, and those kind of things. So given that that's the case, what I really would like you to do today is just kind of take a walk through our professional development resources. And I would like you to consider answers to the following questions. What additional webinar topics would you like to see offered? We've had done about 48 of these, I think I counted, 48 webinars, and we've covered the waterfront on a lot of things. But if there's a topical area you'd like to see, send it into the chat room. If there's, what additional training courses and materials would you find valuable? As you go through this, as you think about it, if there are some particular types of courses that jump out at you that says, gee, I think I could really use this. I don't see it anywhere in my company, and I don't see it anywhere in the NMA library. Why, just put it down there, because this is a way for me to find out for those folks who are out in, quote, as Steve would say, chapter land, what their needs are, and it's an opportunity for me to do that and interact with you. The last thing is, what's the preference for the delivery of the training? Sometimes it's just a facilitator. Sometimes it's a more formal training kind of approach. Sometimes it's just doing it on the interactive on the computer, and those kinds of things. And so if you have a particular preference, I kind of like you to send that into the chat room too. Now there'll be, as we get along on the way, this is kind of telling you what we're going to go do, and then we're going to go do it. These 3 questions will come across again as we go through the webinar. So you don't have to immediately go do that, but I really would appreciate it. It's an opportunity in the NMA professional development arena that we don't get very often, to have you tell us what you need. The NMA chapter, and I think all of us have seen this if you've been around NMA very long, brings opportunities for professional, personal development to its members. And we do that 3 ways. One is through the activity and leading the chapter. Another way is through leading community contributions in terms of hands-on work in the community, board work in the community, those kinds of things. And then there's also the more formal piece of it, which is professional development training, which we provide. And those things, if they integrate well, then can be a very powerful tool for us. So what's in it for the participants to do something in professional development? Well, it's a chance to gain some new skills. Things are always changing in terms of how we deal with problem situations, what the tools are that we have in front of us for communication and what have you. It's an investment in your own career. In the government contracting work, which I've been involved in the nuclear business, folks come and go an awful lot, and you better be investing in your own career, whether you have to change jobs or you just change companies. And I think that's generally true even more today, as the business world gets a little more chaotic. The other thing you can use it for is to build new relationships, build the connections that help us be successful. For the organization, it's their support for a learning environment, It's cost-effective leadership training and engagement of employees in their own development. So, I think those things are all reasons for where you have an NMA chapter for both participants and the organizations to be involved. The PD products that I would like to talk to you about are shown on your screen: the Foundations of Management, Building Virtual Teams, Leader Labs, Next Top Leadership Model, Faciliskills, and then live online webinars. And those are kind of the proprietary type NMA products. We'll also talk a little bit about some contractors who were on board to provide us training on you sign up for it and pay some money. You will for some of these too, by the way, but I mean, it's they're independent companies. First one I would like to broach with you is Foundations of Management. We came out with this in a partnership with ICPM in about 2013 or so, and there are 3 volumes that deal with management fundamentals, managerial functions, and business concepts for management. Now, I have heard people say, well, I can go out and find all that information on the internet, and so why should I pay for it? Well, the truth of the matter is that what these books represent is probably the wisdom and knowledge spread across 50 or so professional authors, researchers, and people who have performed in business. And so if you go out on the internet, in my experience, you can find things that talk about some of the areas, but once again, you get what they're saying, and I really think it's true. You get what you pay for, and so the cost here is with this program is it's not minimal, but it's not wildly expensive. It's about like what you pay for some college text, frankly. Management fundamentals. You can see the kind of programs that it covers. Very basic stuff. Besides the books you can buy for your individual study, you can buy a leader's book and put together a group of people to facilitate and the discussion and talk about questions and answers. And there's PowerPoints with the leader's book and that sort of thing. And so you can use these in your chapter in group setting roles, or you can do it for individual study. Frankly, for the kind of topics we're looking at, the more experience that you can get from other people as you're going through them in terms of what they've seen, what's worked, what hasn't worked, the better off you are. And so I encourage group study on these kinds of things. The small chapter I'm in out here has done that, and it actually was a good way to prepare folks for whether they thought they wanted to go through the CM training program and become certified managers. So you can see this is basic stuff on the manager's role, effective communication skills, and one that's always kind of fun to deal with is making ethical decisions and providing first-rate customer service. Managerial functions. These are the typical kinds of things when you see in planning, organizing, controlling, that kind of thing. This also includes, of course, training and appraising because feedback is a very important function in having people learn what it is you want and expect, and understanding where your bar of performance is. And that has a lot to do with leading and motivating people. So these are the doing things when you're in the managerial or a leadership role. And then the last area is the business concepts for managers, and this deals with the business environment and basic economic issues, information technology, conceptually, and it's very broad, and managing accounting and financial information. Those kinds of things are what you find in the fundamentals of management program. And I guess for just a second, I would ask, are there any questions on FOM? Steve, do they have their own mutes or do you control it?
I think all the microphones are open. Sue, can you confirm? I'm doing the chat room. She's doing the mute button.
Okay.
Yeah, I will unmute everyone.
Okay, I just want to know if there are any questions. Steve, have you seen anything come in on?
No. No, chat room is empty so far.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. I mean, this is the first of the courses. It's just covers a lot of material. Okay, if there's no questions, we'll keep pushing on. The next topic we have is the building virtual teams. It's 5 chapters, and it kind of focuses around not so much the how do you set up a virtual network and that sort of thing from a technical standpoint, as it is how do you make it work. You know, I read an article about some of the IBM teams now where they're all over the world, and they put the very best they can on a particular problem in a particular technical area. Find it amazing they can do that, but that involves then working not face to face all the time until there's some real key things that need to be addressed. And so this tells you how to deal with those kinds of things from what you can see. It was I don't know if anybody's claimed authorship for this thing or not, but Steve worked on it very hard for quite a while to weave his way through it and understand it and build it into a good communication device. NMA Leader Labs. This is always an interesting one. Can I see a show of hands from folks on how many of you have taken a Leader Lab? And by the way, if it's none, I won't be surprised. Any hands up?
Two.
Okay. What you see here are scenario-based learning sessions. Some would have called it role playing, and there are 9 of them. You can see the kind of things which are offered. You can go out. I'm going to say this, but to find these, you go out on the website, look under the PD offerings, and you may have to navigate through a couple of drop-down menus, and then you can find this listing of nine programs, and you can print one out. They are really pretty good for small group sessions where you take one of the scenarios and a role in it, and then see how you deal, then see how it comes out and how you deal with it. It's an interesting way to approach different leadership styles and see what works. We were actually caught short, and this, I'm sure this never happens to anybody but my chapter, but we were caught short without a speaker one time. I mean, almost literally, you know, it was an illness kind of thing, and it was the day of our meeting and all that sort of thing. And what we used were 2 or 3 of these, and then had the people who participated share with us what they were dealing with and what the outcome was. And it provided for some very interesting learning experiences. And one of the keys here is these are free.
Yeah, no, I think the HFA was in pretty good shape, if I remember from looking at it.
Hey, Don.
Yeah.
I have some questions about management fundamentals before we move on. You want me to share them with you?
Yeah.
All right. First person says, how long does management fundamentals take? And to that, someone said, and can you pick and choose individual courses that would benefit the chapter, such as delivering first-rate customer service? purchase the leader book and have a brown bag for interested chapter members.
So I'm going back to FLM. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Once you buy, you have three books and 3 leader guides, and so you commit to one of them, and then you can pick the area you want to work in. The way we went through it was we just took a chapter a week and went through it, and trying to, because this almost was for a replacement for some prior kinds of training materials that NMA had. But you can, if you get the 3 books, you can jump all around and do whatever you want in whatever order you want. There is as I recall, there is a certificate for finishing them, but it's not it's not a tightly controlled thing. You can do what you need to do.
And Don, to that point, I'll add, we advertise the entire program. The 3 books, there are 14 chapters, and we advertise that you can take anywhere from 28 to basically 48 hours to accomplish those. I've seen most facilitators tend to do 2 hours per chapter. I know of one in California that does 4 hours per chapter. So the equivalent continuing education unit, the equivalent CEU are provided, but it's they're done to provide some flexibility to those of you in the chapter, depending on how much time you have to do these.
Okay.
Somebody wrote in and somebody said, "Can you do a brown bag?" Sure. My guess would be spread it over a couple days, or maybe 2 Tuesdays a month, or however you want to do it. But the chapters are short enough that you can do it that way. Someone wrote in and says, we did our first, and this is about Leader Lab, but oh, well, I already opened my big mouth. We already did our first Leader Lab 2 weeks ago. We had a great time. We had good responses, and we're looking forward to having more participants next time. So
the chapters here are, I mean, they are substantial. They're not, but you get, as I recall, the leader book includes not only the book, but also a PowerPoint and several other tools like that to go through. Anything else?
Nope. Everybody says thanks.
Okay, good. So having gone through those, I'd like you to take a few minutes now and go through and tell me, identify what training courses you really would like to have. I mean, are there others that we don't have? We've hit most of the meatier things, I think. And just send it into the chat room, okay? And of course, the second question that goes with that is, do you have a preference on delivery of the training methodology? And both of those, by the way, are focused to help us know where we might want to take some of the professional development work in the future. It's oftentimes hard to know what it is that the folks in the different parts of the field would like. And a lot of it depends on where your members are. If they're new members and young folks coming up, well, good for you, frankly. But that sometimes means you need different things than perhaps what we might have. Okay.
Okay. We do have a response. Anything with communication, especially email overload.
Oh.
and someone else adds potentials or training focus for, I think maybe they're still typing. So.
Yeah. Okay. The one on email, as I recall, I thought we did a webinar on that. And my point here, now I don't know if it's out there, but like this one, we have been, the last couple of years, we have been recording most of our webinars. And if you go to on the website, if you go to the piece of it that has the information on webinars, then you'll be able to take a look at that and see which ones have been recorded. And you could use that for a brown bag, frankly.
Absolutely. Somebody else writes, I love the webinar option. I would also like to be able to learn more about inventive ways to get credit on Car 1 reports, joining other chapters, etc., specifically in the area of continuing education.
Okay. That'd be a good one for us to take a look at.
Mm-hmm.
And do it in partnership with Recognition. Okay, Facilla Skills. I'm moving on. You keep folks send in your stuff into the chat room. Keep Steve kind of occupied there. The Facilla Skills was developed right around. I think Steve, as I recall, it was right around 2000 to 2004 or 5, and it was to provide some tools for people so that when they were done, it would help them work in teams, facilitate people together to solve problems, and leveraging time and have a greater impact in terms of the best solution that could be developed. And then it wasn't used for a while. And lately, and then there was some upgrading to the course that happened by our friends in Columbus. And so the Columbus chapter and the Rockwell Collins chapters, and I know the one in Texas in particular, has used Facilla Skills with really good results. And I think that's probably a function of the age of their workforce and chapter and the way it's been developing. And so if you're in a business that has a fair number of new folks coming in, that kind of thing, and they need to know how to function in teams better, this is a pretty good one to look at. We will be, it is one of the areas, if we continue to get the interest, that we're going to take probably a closer look at it in terms of evaluating it and then seeing what we want to do with it from a need-based kind of approach. So,
all right, Don, I'm going to share a couple more things from the chat room.
Okay.
In terms of delivery, we got a great comment. Methods of delivery training should be flexible, depending on the subject and the audience's needs and capabilities. That's helpful to keep in mind, certainly because our chapters are so diverse. In terms of suggestions for courses, I see capitalizing on social media, written plan for growth, parallel programs with formal educational programs, plus more with case studies, and virtual teams focusing on using WebEx tools and maximizing time tips. To that person, since I see who it is, let me know. And if you want to see the course, I'll be glad to, for anybody, let us know and we'll let you take a sneak peek at building virtual teams. And then someone else writes, I took Facilla Skills early on. I had good results, but it's much improved since then. So good stuff.
Okay. This one's kind of interesting. I saw earlier that Matt was on from Blue Cross Blue Shield, and I don't know if Matt's ever got involved in doing this particular one, but it is one program that we got from our friends at Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan, and we used it in a couple of our leadership conferences where we train, the leadership, incoming officers and that sort of things. And it's an interactive workshop that involves lecture, group discussion, and hands-on work. And so, of course, they look at leadership competencies, leadership models, and then there's a hands-on activity, which I've sort of watched from afar, that involves Legos and other kinds of materials like that. It always struck me as the people who were doing this had a lot of fun, and they should have learned from it. Basically, we have this one in a very informal way in terms of, I believe we have some PowerPoints with it and that kind of thing. But if you want to try something really different, this might be one of those things to try. Okay.
Okay. Somebody wrote, right, where can I find the next top leadership model? We can get that to you. Just drop Sue, Robin, or me a note, and we can send you some information. And that's certainly, and thanks to Matt, it was actually one of the Blue Cross Blue Shield chapter members, Stacy Brown, who developed that course herself in the height of, if you'll remember, next top model was a big deal on TV, and she kind of patterned it after that, and it is lots of fun. And it should be under the question is, where do you find it? If you're on the website, go to the professional development drop down, then go to NMA proprietary courses and programs, and some information will be in there. Now, of course, that depends on, some of you probably know we're having intermittent issues with the website platform. So if it's down, check in about 30 minutes. Chances are it'll be back up. It's an off and on thing that Sue and others are working on, trying to figure out why it's doing that. We will get to the bottom of it. So just be patient and give us a call if there's something else you need.
Okay.
Oh, Sue says it's not on the website. That's why send me an email and I'll take care of that. Yeah, I know. We took it off. I do remember that. That's right.
Okay. So they need to get hold of you or Sue or Robin.
Any of the above will work.
Yeah. Okay. Webinars. These are have also turned into a pretty good developmental tool for NMA. I see we've got like 30 participants in terms of connections. I know in some cases it's a lot of people sitting in a room, and in others it's just people on individual workstations. But as you can tell, they're presented by NMA members, NMA leaders, executives from NMA chapters, and subject matter experts. And example topics, like I said, we've done 48, and it included some things on some of the statistical things in addition to soft topics. So you can see the ones that are here were all kind of fun. The art of decision making, conflict management, employee engagement, and improving communication in a busy world. There are a whole lot of others. Steve does have a list of them, and some of them, a fair number now are recorded. Steve, I'm trying to remember what we have coming up here pretty quick in the future for April and May and that sort of thing. But we've got a schedule of them out through just about the end of the year.
Yeah, I can help out a little bit. I'm still waiting on some people to confirm. But next month, we've got April covered. It's going to be Influence Without Authority, presented by Terry Burke, and he's VP of Industrial Business at Blue Cross Blue Shield in Michigan. We have a colleague, a PhD by the name of Dr. Jody Wilson, who is a colleague of Don's, who is going to be presenting in May. And I know he and she both talked yesterday, and they're finalizing her topic. We're hoping to do giving and receiving feedback in June. Sharon Robertson at Boeing in Huntsville is presenting in July. She sent me some great suggestions, and I told her to pick one. And the other one we have nailed down for sure is all the way into October, and that is Managing Relationships and Change. And thanks to Matt Zellman, our new director from Blue Cross Blue Shield, he has Tiffany Albert putting that one on. So thank you, Matt, for both of the Blue Cross participants. And stay tuned. You know, once we have any updates, we're going to keep them on the website, on the calendar that's there.
Yeah. And we have been working hard to get the information to you in a timely manner too. I guess you could always say, well, you can improve on that, but I think it's been, the word's been getting out a lot better. So my third question for you that we talked about at the very beginning is, what additional webinar topics would you like to see offered? When we get together in July at a board meeting in the Professional Development Committee, one of the things we will be looking at is what kind of webinar topics do we want to talk about? Who's best to go find somebody to do it? And then who is going to be willing to do the webinars? They've turned out to be very, very popular, which I think is a great thing. And so if you have additional webinar topics, I would like you to make a point now of taking a few minutes as we're starting to go through a few other things, and just give us some ideas. And along with that, Steve, have any other questions come in?
No. I got a comment that Terry Burke doing the next month is a really, really good presenter, and we've had some requests for information on Next Top Leadership Model, which Sue and I will take care of getting out. So
okay, very good. Once again, this is a tour through our PD series, and so, you know, ask any questions you want and make any of the suggestions. I really would like to get a list of topics that we need to address from a you know, fundamental class kind of situation, and see what we can do about working on them, or who we can get to come in with us. PD partnerships. Business Training Experts is out of Minnesota. We first heard about them and got an agreement in place. And when, let's see, I think it was about 2012, because we had the chapter, I'm sorry, the leadership conference in Seattle. And so that's kind of how I remember those things. But I have had the experience of presenting these to new leaders in some very interesting situations. Out here in this part of the world, we have an operation which probably is the world's largest producer of apples, even more so than what you get in Michigan. Sorry, Matt. And the thing you'll find is that when we did this, we were going in and about half the workforce was Hispanic, and so that's not only the language but the culture which is there. You know, smart people, by the way, but and they were also from a servant leadership kind of arena, and so it was an interesting set of teaching. And the Business Training Experts materials, they're like 24 courses in the North Star series. They fit right in with what they needed. So every other week we went out and did a 2-week class for them, and took them about halfway through the program. We've done this also with Lisa and I did this 2 years with our chapter meeting like once a month, and soliciting folks from the community as well as who are potential NMA members for us as well as others. Some people didn't understand exactly how it was going to work. And so, it's one where you pay for a license for each course that you take. And Steve, I can't remember what the price is. And we talked yesterday about the business model for pricing seems to be changing. But at the time, it was like $35 a person. And it was a 2-hour program by the time you got through. And that fee is what helps that company keep going. It's not like you get a workbook with it, but the workbook is just a place to keep the notes and stuff from what you're going through that particular day, and how you're going to build an improvement plan that goes across all of the topical areas. And there are 10 drivers on the objectives in that program for leadership, and so it's a fairly well integrated picture. They've used really, really good folks to do it. And yet, and I guess Martin Marietta in Lockheed Martin Marietta in Georgia has used this one with some success too. And I think now, my way of getting to it is I would go try and get in through the NMA website, because that's the way I used to do it. You may also be able to just go to Business Training Experts and see what they got. They have a sample of one of their videos. It's very good because it deals with accountability. IQ Share. We have here a thing called the Special Series. That's my language. IQ Share is one of the groups that will provide courses to you that get you ready for certifications and for qualification in a large variety of areas. We started out using it because some of our members needed to be certified project managers, and that's what the PMP is through PMI, the Project Management Institute, and so that's kind of how we got involved with them. And they are starting next Wednesday, and as I understand it, it's the third Wednesday month, providing 3 to 4 hour seminars in about 6 different topics. These 3 are ones which come up from now until June. And I don't know if they're going to continue through the summer or if there's a break, but they are substantial, but they're informational as opposed to getting you ready to qualify for the PMP. It's what the material is, how it approaches it, and what you got to do to go through the boot camp. I would tell you it's a very successful from an outcome standpoint in getting through any of their topics. They have a very, very high success rate of people who finally go take the variety of exams and pass. And then there's Mind Edge, which is, I think, about 150 self-study courses that you can, as I recall, you pay for each one that you want to do. But they're awfully good for doing brown bags and small kind of topical areas. So that's kind of what that looks like. And the other thing I would mention to you in terms of partnerships is that we're still working on one with Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh. They've made some changes in their executive training arena, which they had going, and so that's kind of jostled us around a little bit. But they're out of their business school. They are still interested in working with us for the benefit of them and the benefit of us to provide opportunities to attend their training. And it's executive level training, and so it's pretty expensive. But we would get, as NMA people, I think it's a 20% discount. And then there are some other things like I plan to try and I mean, this is one of those things I've been telling myself I got to go do while I'm still around PD, and that is post some of their what I think are more beneficial webinars that they do, and that gives you a different view of things than necessarily what we've been covering in our webinars. But it would be to post it, and if you want to see it, you can go out and take a look and see what it covers. And they have a whole variety of topics that they do. So we're still working on that relationship, and I think for right now, those are the top irons in the fire. By the way, if we were on this thing with Carnegie Mellon, we had an in there, and so you take the in that you can get. You know, I've personally got no issues with trying to set up similar arrangements with other universities if there are ones that the companies principally work with. I believe I learned that Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan relies very heavily on Michigan State. We've got out in my area, Washington State University. You know, I've heard that Arizona State could also be access. So if you're out there and you know of some way to get access to these kind of programs, that would be good. And we'll kind of see how they develop. I mean, this is, you know, it just takes a lot of time and somebody to go do it. So moving on, certified manager program. You know, there's not a lot of words here for you. I would tell you, my wife and I went through this program, I think maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years, something like that. It took us about 6 months to get through. No, longer than that. It took us maybe a year to get through it, because we were meeting once a month in a small group. And doing our studies and homework that way, and so it was for me it was a very good refresher in terms of a lot of business topics and also an update for my wife, who is pretty savvy. Her degree's in IT, and for her it was a good look at some of the business world things. And at the time, of course, she was preparing to become chairman at NMA and felt she needed some additional insight. So we did this. I would share with you that coming up, there's a revision 4 of the program with new study materials and testing and everything this fall. As that rolls out, we'll keep you on board. Steve sits on their board of regents as I guess an unofficial member, because NMA and the Institute, not the Institute, I'm sorry, the International Management Council, which was also kind of an association like ours and was absorbed into NMA about 10 years ago, were the actual founders of it. And then eventually it ended up at James Madison University as the independent Institute of Certified Professional Managers. So it's it's a really good program for certification. If you're just dealing with the tests, I think it's around $450. You know, so it's not something that's real cheap. And if you get the books on top of it, it's a substantial investment. For me, it was worth it, and I think it was also for Lisa. And we've been fortunate that we have a number of certified managers out here. Kind of makes things gives a different perspective to things. So if you have a need for continuing management training, this is actually a very good program. Just to point out to you, I did not get in with you today the description of the professional development process. I mean, we have a development guidebook for that, which I think you can download off of the website as well. And it tells you how to complete the forms, how to ask for CEUs, that sort of thing. Now, Steve and I are both on the horn here today, so if you have some questions about those, we would try and answer them, of course. But that's why we have this here. A reminder to you that you can use your chapter rewards programs towards the purchase of NMA awards, conferences, and educational materials, including any of which you've seen here. Steve, are you still got your ears on?
I do, and I'm looking at, I've got some stuff to share in a minute from the chat room, but go ahead.
Yeah, can you explain very briefly, like if they wanted to get foundations of management or, the virtual,
yeah,
how you use the chapter rewards with it?
Yes, you use that at the time of ordering. The NMA Board of Directors several years ago approved chapter rewards are simply dues rebates, if you will. Every chapter gets $2 for every member that's on their January 1st, actually it's the December 31st of the previous year. We use that number to determine how we calculate chapter rewards for the following year. In other words, if you have 50 members on December 31st of 2017, then in 2018, you have $100 in chapter rewards that you can use for a variety of things. When it comes to professional development programs, foundations of management, you can get 20% off because that's a McGraw-Hill course, and of course we have to pay for it. But 20% off of $80 is $64. So that's a nice savings. The leader guide, for instance, is $100 with chapter rewards. It's only $80. Now, even a better deal is building virtual teams, because that's an NMA developed course. We will offer you a 50% discount for building virtual teams. So those books are normally $50. You can get them for $25 with your chapter rewards.
Okay, thanks, Steve. What else you got there?
Okay, and back to, and this is fun because we kind of have a little bit of everything in terms of courses to consider. One is getting organized. I don't know if that's a course or a seminar, it could be either. Someone else saying, I would love to participate in any webinar offerings that offer PDUs for project management professional certification requirements. One of the things we try and do with all of our materials is to offer, at least in terms of courses, continuing education units, which usually are the same as PDUs, CEUs. It depends on the organization, but we can always get you CEU certificates that you can submit. Potential webinars, building a chapter newsletter, building a user-friendly website. Someone else speaks to IQShare and MindShare and said, I've taken seminars and courses from both IQShare and MindEdge and definitely profited from the experience. And then, can you use chapter rewards to pay for webinar connections? Yes, absolutely. We have some chapters that do that. Oh, and that was sent to everybody, and Sue already responded. Certainly, if you have enough chapter rewards available.
Okay.
That was a bit of a hodgepodge, but we appreciate the interaction. This is great.
Yeah. Okay. Last thing, just kind of mention to you is there are a variety of certificates available for completion of courses, and also the the Excellence in Professional Development, which is a chapter-earned NMA PD award. So those are available. I do know that when we were doing a lot of the BTE training, which is business training expert training, training experts. I'm sorry. That we asked for CEUs to be granted for those, and they also came in on I don't know if Lisa did this herself or if she had worked with the staff back there, but they came in on a nice certificate kind of form too. So you could have those to use for showing continuing development, or if you needed those for any of your other certifications.
And Don, maybe something I should mention that we often forget to mention, and that is in this day and age when nobody's really sure for whom they're going to be working next month, NMA will keep, and we do keep, track of everybody's continuing education units, PDUs, professional development units. If you just send those in, we will keep a spreadsheet of that information here, and we can provide a transcript for you at any time. It's just a free member benefit that we provide. And totally shifting gears, I'm having a laugh. Sue had the same thought I do. We have some newer and nicer looking certificates than the ones that we sent to Don. So we'll get those upgraded. Trust me, we've got some handsome certificates right now.
Okay. I guess if we have just a few minutes for open mic time. If anybody's got any comments they'd like to offer back to us or questions, be happy to cover any of those. And Steve, will you send out a survey on the webinar?
I will be happy to do that.
Yeah, I couldn't remember if you routinely did it or not.
I do and I don't, so I'll get back in the habit with this one.
Oh, okay. In this one in particular, if you've got pluses and minuses in your mind, feel free to send that kind of information in, because I think it's extremely important that our membership understand what the professional development opportunities are that we offer and what they can ask for, so that we can figure out what we can do and what we can't. They're always limited resource problems, but on the other hand, one of the reasons we have the NMA Foundation is to help us when we need to on special development. So, okay. Any questions out there? Any wrap-ups anybody has?
This is Avis. Can I make a comment?
Oh, sure.
I want to go back to the very beginning of your presentation when you were talking about people who are at the bottom edge of the leadership pyramid and needed training. The very reason I joined NMA 34 years ago, and I felt like you were talking to me, because I was one of those people who were way at the bottom, I mean, down in the cellar as far as leadership opportunities went. And yet I knew I was capable and I knew there were needs. And the company did not provide any support or education like that. And that's exactly the reason I joined NMA. And it's probably the smartest thing I ever did in my life. Now I'm going to be quiet.
Okay. Thank you, Avis. I appreciate that, because the stories like that where people come along through NMA and move on to very substantial positions kind of help validate some things which have gone on. Anybody else? Okay. Well, I think we're right at about the end time for the webinar here. I want to thank you for your time and interest, and I hope that you're finding that if you put together a professional development training at the chapter level, I mean, you can do a lot of things individually, but if you do it, you can integrate a lot of these particular programs, so that one helps the other one and becomes a lot better. But get out and try them. Some of it may sound, a little uncomfortable, but every time I've seen people doing that, it's been kind of fun, because nobody's worried if you do it right, wrong, or not. So,
Don,
thanks
I
for
want
your
to
comments.
I want to
Yes.
join I want to join some people who have put things on the chat room. Everybody's thanking you for a nice job, and I agree with that. It's nice of you to take the time today, and we'll see everybody next month. And if you have others you want to encourage to join us at 3 p.m. Eastern time today, we'll be doing this again. So take care. Thank you, everybody. And for those of you that have tomorrow off, have a great weekend.